at my old institution, we did price out the two systems against each other, and they very much competed for the business of that contract. And Olympus they already had the contract, and the hospital just wouldn't switch.
And were they price competitive, or was Olympus, 5% cheap? So is this like 5% cheaper, 30% cheaper, 2% cheaper?
Olympus was not cheaper, actually. But I think the issue was the amount of blades they'd have to use and the price on the consoles. Olympus was giving the consoles for free, and I think Medtronic was charging full price. As I recall, it's been a few years.
Got it. So for these debrider contracts,
the decisions are above my.
The typical debrider contract that you've seen, it sounds like you get the console at some very free or reduced cost.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're always angling for, because the precedent's out there for
that. Should we talk about some of these other vendors as well? So, for instance, Doctor, you mentioned Intersect, which I believe is a stent product.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about that product?
Well, there's no real competing product out there with Intersect right now. So, I mean, they were first to market, and they're coming out with a new product as well that's going to be useful in the office. Their product has really revolutionized the way we think about doing sinus surgery, especially up in the frontal sinuses, because you can do frontal sinus surgery with less concern that the sinus will restenose after surgery by putting a dissolvable stent in its place that doesn't need to be removed. In addition, we use their stents in the ethmoid sinuses as well to help combat recurrent polyposis. I do that less, in part because it's harder to debride those patients after surgery when the stents are in place. And also, if you start putting 4 stents in everybody, it gets to be rather expensive.
Got it.
So I would prefer, if I have my choice, I'd prefer just to use it up in the frontal sinuses, because that's where I need the help the most. The other purpose of the stent is to stent the middle turbinate over, and I don't find that to be a particularly useful feature of the ethmoid stents, because I just stitch the middle turbinate to the septum, and therefore I eliminate the need for a $700 device to do something I can do with a $5 piece of suture.
Got it. Doctor, are you familiar? Have you heard anything about, or would you be interested in potentially a drug-eluting stent, for sinusitis procedures? The idea that to elute some sort of, I guess, would be an answer. Oh, this Intersect is drug-eluting. Okay.
Yeah, it elutes mometazone. So yes, that's why we use it. That's what it does. I mean, it secretes the steroid, and the steroid is what prevents the cicatricial scarring that leads to the blockage of the sinus postoperatively.
Got it. Now, what about something that was eluting like antibiotics to prevent infection? Have you heard about any products in the marketplace like that?
I have not, and I wouldn't be particularly interested in that either.
Got it.
There's no evidence that would help.
Got it. Makes sense. Doctor, what about ArthroCare? Can we talk about ArthroCare for a moment?
Yeah. Right. So ArthroCare makes co-bladers. What else do they make? I have a lot of experience using the co-blader. A lot. Both the one in the nose for the turbinate reduction device, and also the one for the tonsils. I've used probably thousands of them over my lifetime, my career. I like the Turbinator one. I think it's a nice sort of one device takes care of the whole problem kind of device, compared to the microdebrider, which is a little bit bloodier and more traumatic to the mucosa and harder to control, or compared to just using a bipolar. And I like it. I like the co-blader for the tonsils, at least on kids. I don't really use it on adults, because it creates less of a mucosal injury, and they seem to have less pain afterwards. And it's also just easier to use.